wishing I could do it. Go back to that level with the dog again. Shoot that bitch this time. That's the thing about chess. Checkmate. You're fucking done. That's what makes life so hard. No rebooting.
Back at Corbell's house, Tommy returns to his car after his attack on the sheriff and the local ringleader. He instantly calls the precinct for backup and frames Bob as the assailant responsible for their murders. Once reinforcements arrive, the medics pronounce the sheriff dead and pack up his body. However, on inspection, they realize Corbell survived the attack, much to Tommy's horror. The medics take his unconscious body to a nearby clinic, while Tommy heads over to meet Dee Dee after receiving news of Bob's attack at the hospital. Hours later, Flynn, Burton, and Connor return to the future and meet with 𝐒𝐿obeer. Fascinated by the Peripheral's abilities, the inspector views the trio as a valuable asset and proposes they form an alliance. 𝐒𝐿obeer suggests they work together, and in exchange, offers to use the Met's resources to navigate the impending jackpot in their timeline. Capitalizing on the proposal, Flynn reveals her mom recently experienced a relapse and asks the Met officer for help getting a permanent cure. On her request, 𝐒𝐿obeer consults with the aunties and receives some disturbing news. Sharing the algorithm's findings, the inspector reveals there's no definitive cure for her mom's sickness. She also details the tumor has reached a terminal stage and predicts Ella only has 23 days left to live. The trio is devastated by the news and returns home as Burton consoles a heartbroken Flynn. At the other end of town, Jasper and Corbell's men discuss who will take charge of the criminal operations, now that the boss is incapacitated. When Jasper brings himself up as a possible candidate, the men all laugh in his face and take him as an errand boy. Later that night, the trio passes out completely drunk, as Jasper volunteers to drive them home. On the ride, he realizes the only way to inherit his uncle's business is to eliminate the three henchmen. Having no other option, the ambitious nephew parks the car on a train rail and abandons them there. Moments later, Jasper has a change of heart and returns to save the men, but quickly realizes it's too late. A train approaches from a distance and crushes the car, swiftly killing the three henchmen in a flash. Back in the future, Ash grows resentful toward Lev and decides to form an alliance with his enemy. The technician secretly meets Charisse and informs the RI leader of Alita's stolen information hidden in Flynn's brain. She explains Lev is after the data and would soon retrieve it if no action is taken. Hearing this, Charisse decides to take decisive action and kill Flynn once and for all. As her assassination attempts had all failed, the RI leader resolves to take a more drastic step, to wipe out Flynn and all her associates in one fell swoop. Charisse decides to speed up the jackpot's impending arrival in their stub timeline. Before Charisse leaves to enact her plan, a vengeful Ash asks the RI leader for a favor and requests she also kills Lev as payment for the information. Charisse remarks it'd be hard to assassinate the 𝐒𝐿opt, but eventually agrees to it as she returns to her office. At the other end of town, Flynn meets with Wilf as the duo continues their search for Alita. Reminiscing on his childhood, Wilf reveals he and Alita once ran away from their adoptive home and set up a secret minuscule kingdom on the streets. Learning this story, Flynn realizes Alita might have returned to the secret hideout. Having no other leads to follow, the duo heads over to check the area. As they leave for the hideout, Ash and Ossian hack into Flynn's peripheral and use it to spy on them, tracking the duo's location. Minutes later, Wilf and the gamer arrive at the secret place and find a young girl waiting there. Upon questioning, it is revealed that the girl is actually a peripheral controlled by Alita. Realizing Ash is using Flynn to monitor their exchange, the android pulls out a gun and sends the gamer away, so she can have some privacy with Wilf. As Flynn leaves, the peripheral takes Wilf to Alita's real location, and the brother and sister finally reunite after weeks of searching. Wasting no time, the XRI employee reveals why she stole the data and goes into great detail about her plan. Giving a brief history lesson, she explains every citizen in the future has an implant in their brain that is used to suppress their memories. Having removed hers, she recalls an attack carried out decades ago and the masterminds behind it. It turns out the 𝐒𝐞 ordered the mass murder of several million citizens to help curtail the spread of a contagion. As a result, over 5 million infected and healthy people were killed in a fortnight, including 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐸 and Wilf's families. Seeking justice, 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐸 plans to gather a small army of survivors and prepares to strike back at the 𝐒𝐞. However, to do this, 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐸 reveals they need the stolen RI data and remarks she'd have to get it from Flynn's brain. While the siblings reunite, Flynn returns to her world and runs into Tommy. Working in the precinct, the cop receives a shocking piece of information and relays it to Flynn. It turns out a bomb attack is hours away from being launched at a nuclear missile silo just miles from their town. Hearing this, Flynn recognizes the strike as one of the jackpot's events and instantly returns to the future to avoid it. The gamer figures 𝐒�rie is behind the missile strike and brainstorms on possible measures to survive it. Realizing 𝐒�rie would never call off the attack, Flynn decides her only chance at survival is to escape to another stub entirely. The gamer tells Connor her plan and reveals she'd sacrifice herself so everyone else in their original timeline can live. To stop 𝐒�rie from blowing up the nuclear silo, Flynn asks Connor to kill her when they return to their world, so the RI leader would no longer have a reason to launch the missile. At first, Connor is skeptical about killing his friend's sister. However, when Flynn explains she will survive in another stub, the ex-Marine finally gives in. To jump between timelines, Flynn consults Inspector 𝐒𝐤𝐸𝐸 and learns of a secret RI facility known as the Stub Portal. Here, people can access whatever timeline they choose and permanently move to another stub. Once Flynn receives the coordinates, she immediately heads to the secret location and defeats a guarding Peripheral at the portal's door. Inside, she meets several other Peripherals piloted by 𝐒�rie and tactfully takes them all down. Using a pocket watch controller, Flynn accesses the stub portal and creates a new stub timeline. To cover her tracks, she crushes the controller, making it impossible for the RI to pinpoint what stub she has been transported to. After completing the task, Flynn returns to her original timeline and, as planned, is killed by Connor. In the newly created stub timeline, she travels to 2100 London and wakes up in her Peripheral. Here, she meets with Inspector 𝐒𝐤𝐸𝐸 to begin a pre-planned mission of taking 𝐒�rie and the entire RI organization down.